Happy Sunday, everyone. I'm so glad to be here with you all this Sunday to share a message that will hopefully be a blessing for even just one person here. Just by way of introduction, for some of you that don't know me or have never met me yet, I'll be here after service to introduce myself again. But my name is Jehuda, and I was the former pastor here at AGC from 2019 until 2023. And since then, I've moved to Los Angeles. I got my master's in therapy, and I am now working as a therapist primarily for foster youth in LA, which I'll share more about a little bit later. Although I come back from time to time as a guest, I'm always thinking about you guys. I'm always praying about you guys. So first of all, I want you to just to give a little bit of appreciation for all the hard work, all the ministers, all the audiovisual client. Come on, let's give a hand for everyone that makes all this possible. Honestly, I get to do the easy job of jumping on a plane and speaking once every while, but there's so many people here that sacrifice their time, energy, both on Sundays and throughout the week. While I was thinking, praying, meditating on what I wanted to share this morning, I was reminded of a recent session, a mental health session that I had with a client who was in foster care. So for those of you that might not know what foster care is, it's for people under 18 that for one reason or another had to be taken away from their home, whether if it's their parents passing away, their parents not being fit for parenting, on drugs, in prison, et cetera, et cetera. In this particular client, obviously I'm not going to tell you their name because that's against the law, but this client was put in foster care after her father left. Her mom was using drugs, was an addict, and was removed because her grandmother had physically and sexually abused her, among a lot of many other things. And so I've been working here for almost a year now since I've been at the job, and this one particular session, we talked very long for two and a half hours. Sometimes I'm just sitting there and just like, girl, I gotta get going after this. I gotta go home. But we were talking this particular session about healing and how therapy can help heal from trauma. And if you guys can even just imagine just the amount of trauma this person has. And immediately when I started talking about it, she was like, honestly, and she's like 22, 23, so she always says chat. She calls me chat, but I'm like sitting in front of her. I don't know why she says chat. She's like, chat, I don't know. I don't know if I want to heal. And I thought that was so interesting that she said that. I don't know if I want to heal if it means forgetting everything that I went through in the past. And I thought that was so interesting. And in the moment, I was like, oh crap, what do I say here? A lot of times in my job, when people say stuff, I'm genuinely like, I'm not prepared to respond to this. I have no idea what I'm saying. And if I had given an honest reaction to my clients and everything they share, I don't think they would want to keep meeting me, because a lot of times after my clients say something, I'm like, you're serious? But as we talked a little bit more, I got the chance to process, pretend to be a good therapist for her, and I was able to talk to her about healing, and healing is kind of like this buzzword, especially in 2026, like in churches, on social media, everywhere we go, like everyone's on their healing journey and things like that. But I was able to process with her that healing is not just simply forgetting what you went through. Healing is not as simple as forgive and forget, even though we like to say that a lot. Healing is not simply forgetting what you've gone through and the hurt that you've experienced, but rather true healing, what I believe the Bible, what Jesus' heart is for each and every single one of us, true healing is actually learning to live with your hurt in a way that doesn't control you anymore. It's not just about forgetting, it's not just about having a blank slate, but it's understand, man, this hurt, but also I can move on from this. This hurt doesn't define me. Real healing from trauma, real healing from hurt, whether it's in relationship, in the church, in your family, is acknowledging your hurt, but not letting it consume you. And I know that we have a lot of people, maybe sometimes we recognize in ourselves, our hurts tend to consume us. It can be one particular person, but it bleeds onto the rest of our lives. We're feeling ashamed because of one thing we've done, but it starts to affect the rest of our lives, whether we realize it or not. So healing is not just simply forgetting what you've gone through, it's acknowledging it, it's taking the time to sit in it, but it's not letting it consume you. And in a very tight-knit community here like AGC, for those of you that have maybe been here from the start or maybe are just joining now, or honestly any Christian community that you belong to, the truth is we're bound to get hurt by somebody. We're bound to get hurt by people that we live, do life with, that we interact with. Church hurt, especially, happens a lot more often than we'd actually like to admit. In a recent study that I found somewhere on Instagram that I cannot cite because I don't know where it came from, but I think I trust this person because they have a lot of followers. They were saying that in churches, it's like 2 out of every 3 people in church have experienced some sort of trauma. And maybe that's you today, and maybe if that's not you, don't worry, you're in line. You'll be next. Whether it's a leader treating you poorly, maybe a church friend leaving you out, a preacher like myself, maybe like making you feel bad or throwing shade or being treated differently by a community. We all have experiences of wounding. We all are hurt by others within the context of the church. And for you that might be going, no, Judah, you don't know, I love the church. I've never been hurt. I will never be hurt. Just wait. Just wait till you get your first one because it's coming. Because to live in community means to do life together. And as us, as sinful, broken people, the closer we get to others, the more our sin, the more our brokenness is realized and seen by others. And the point that I'm trying to make here is that church hurt is normal. It happens to all of us. If it hasn't happened, it will happen. If it's already happened, it's probably still going to happen again. It's normal, and actually hurt in the context of relationship, even something as deep as trauma, can be useful. It can be good. It can lead to growth and a much more deeper and resilient walk with God when we can handle it in the right ways. And so the title of my sermon today is pretty simple, but I hope that's something that speaks to you. But the title of my sermon is Hurting Yet Holy. Let's say that together. 1, 2, 3. Hurting Yet Holy. And the main point of my message today is that the healthiest church is not one where hurt doesn't happen, but one where hurts are healed together. One more time, the healthiest church is not one where hurts don't happen. There's no such thing as a perfect church. And even if there was a perfect church and you found it, as soon as you joined, it wouldn't be perfect anymore, respectfully. But the healthiest church is where hurt exists, but they're healed in the context of community. And what I'm trying to say here is that you don't have to be fully healed to be fully holy in the eyes of Jesus. But you can be fully hurting, yet still fully holy. If you had to get over all that you've gone through, if you had to get over all of your trauma before Jesus accepted you, then none of us would be accepted. In relationship, whether it's with a boyfriend or girlfriend, in the context of dating, in marriage, in friendship, or even in between like church members or a leader between a member, conflict and hurt does not have to be the end of that relationship. A lot of times we're always like, oh, that person hurt me, let me cut them off. And you keep doing that, and then at one day you'll wake up and you'll have nobody around. Because hurt is normal. It happens. It happens to the best of us. It happens with people that have good intentions. If and when 2 people decide to work on things, hurt can actually become a catalyst to deeper growth and intimacy between one another and even with ourselves and God. Last time I was here in December, because Joyce wasn't here, I got to share freely. And on our flight here, my girlfriend and I asked for permission to put it in my sermon, and she said, yeah. And I asked, like, should I run it by you or anything, make sure it's okay? She said no. Maybe she'll regret it today. We'll see. Maybe I'll never get to put it in her sermon again. We'll see. But something that I was really thinking about that we've been doing recently, her and I have been starting to talk about our future together, and we've made the decision to join couples therapy together, and we've been in it about like 2 or 3 months, and where we see a therapist obviously like once a week just to process our relationship, its dynamics, difficult things, in the hopes of improving our relationship. And to be honest, as a therapist myself, couples therapy has been one of the hardest things that I've done in my life. And sometimes I'm like the one crying, and other times I'm like, man, if I was a therapist, I'd say that differently. I'd do that differently. That was a little rude that she said that. Not because I'm perfect and Joyce has a lot to work on, as you guys definitely don't think anyways, but because it takes a lot of humility. process takes a lot of humility. The process of healing from your hurt, it takes humility to bring a past hurt and work it through together in a safe space to bring us into greater understanding of each other and of ourselves. Hurt helps us understand ourselves better. What are my weak points? What things feel triggering for me? What things bring up deep emotions for me that are hurting? And back to the idea of church hurt again, most people leave the church not because they don't like the sermons. Most people don't leave the church because they don't have enough activities. Most people don't leave churches because the events weren't fun enough, but a lot of people leave the church because the people weren't safe. Sometimes church is not safe for people, and that's why they leave. Why is it important to be safe as a church, as a community? My prayer today is that this would be a community that's safe for people that are hurting, that people here can feel safe to be hurting and still holy. As an example, for anyone that might go to the gym, or anyone that running or plays a sport like football or basketball this weekend, most of us know the difference between the pain of exercises and the pain of injury. When, for example, you're doing a bicep curl, you know the difference when your muscle is being stretched versus when your shoulder is out of socket and it's hurting. You know the difference. Sorry, not to speak on anyone this weekend, but you know the difference between growth and the pain of injury. We can't be challenged. We can't grow our muscles, so to speak. We can't experience the pain of growth if we first don't feel safe. A lot of times we're like, yes, this is helpful. I'm being challenged by the church, but actually you're not being challenged. You're being hurt. And you're like, yes, God, put me through the fire, put me through the ringer, but it won't actually do anything for us because we're not actually safe. And so my hope today is that we would become a people, that we would become a church that is safe for people that are hurting. And sometimes churches are not a safe place for people because without realizing, we're great at not really talking about difficult things. There's this concept that I've seen around in like social media called spiritual bypassing. And what does that mean? It's when someone uses spirituality or faith or like Christian buzzwords as a way to avoid confronting uncomfortable emotions, difficult feelings, real world problems like church hurt. It's saying things like when someone shares something to you, have you ever heard someone just say, yeah, bro, just pray about it? Or it's someone saying, bro, God's in control. Don't worry about it. You're worrying too much. Or maybe someone saying to you, bro, it's because you don't have enough faith, man. You don't go to church enough. You don't give offering enough. Or my personal favorite, dude, like, stop talking about negative stuff. Let's just keep it positive in here, man. Let's just keep it holy in here. Don't talk about any hard things. And if you're nodding, it means that you've heard this before. If you're not nodding, you probably said this to someone before. And the truth is, I've probably said this a million times myself. And it's very tricky. We say this to people. We all do this because most of these phrases, they're like based on the Bible, but they don't really capture the heart of God. The heart of God is not one that's like, you're not doing enough. That's not the heart of God. And if you've thought that, if you've received that, I'm so sorry because it happens to the best of us. Spiritual bypassing. Oftentimes it looks like toxic positivity. Have you guys ever met people like that before? And if not, maybe you might be that person, which is okay. There's grace for that. But sometimes all we do is focus on the positive. Bro, your dad just died, but at least you got a good job, right? Oh, that person just hurt you, but at least you have a girlfriend. At least you're not single, right? And although we might have the right intention, it ends up hurting people more than it helps them. And a lot of times we do this because we ourselves, we're not comfortable with those feelings. It hurts to see our friends hurting, but we don't know what to say. So we're just like, you want to just pray? I'm sorry, you want to just pray about it? We'll do a Bible study if that makes you feel better. And a lot of times, telling ourselves God will work it out, but never letting ourselves just sitting with the grief of the hurt. Hurt is real, and it hurts. Trauma hurts. When someone doesn't understand how you're feeling or mistreats you or doesn't give you the benefit of the doubt, it hurts. And a lot of times without realizing, we've trained ourselves in churches to get over it too quickly. We're just like, oh, just pray about it. Just cry about it during worship and then never talk about it again. And I know because I've experienced that myself. We tell ourselves these lies to make sense of our hurting. And a lot of times when we're hurt, our minds either go to one of two things. Well, sometimes like, man, it's all their fault. I'm the victim. It's all of their fault that I'm hurting. Or sometimes we turn to shame. It's all my fault. If I had just said the right thing, if I would have done something differently, it all would have been better. But again, the main message of my sermon today, the healthiest church is not the one where hurts don't happen, but one where hurts are healed together in community. Relational hurts in relationship, always has the potential to create deeper and stronger connection between people when we are safe and when we are willing. Sometimes you don't feel safe, and sometimes we don't want to, and that's okay. But the truth about church hurt is that we're both victim and sinner. And I'm really excited for you guys to go to the AG camp in a week or two, because that's something that they'll be talking about in the book that I got to share with everyone, is that both of us, in the eyes of God, we're both sinner and sufferer. We both hurt people and are hurt by people. And we've both been dismissed by others, and whether we want to do it intentionally or not, we've both dismissed other people's hurts. And whether you wanted to admit it or not, we are all consistently hurting and being hurt by other people. And so super quickly, the passage that we'll be meditating on today, I don't know if I have time to read the entire passage, so I'll just pick verse 19 here from the book of James, chapter 1. For those of you that don't know, the book of James is written by James, the guy. And it's a book talking about a lot of the truths, a lot of biblical truths, a lot of wisdom that he had for the church at the time that still applies to us today. And I encourage you guys, whether it's in AGL this week or by yourselves, to read the book of James, because I think it's a really interesting read. But this is what James says in verse 19 specifically. You must understand this, my beloved brothers and sisters. Let everyone be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to anger. Again, we're just going to read that verse 19 together, but now I want everyone else to read it with me together. Let's read this together. 1, 2, 3. You must understand this, my beloved brothers and sisters. Let everyone be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to anger. And then can we try taking this off? I want you guys to try to remember this. Quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to anger. Everyone, let's say it together again. 1, 2, 3. Quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to anger. Now tell someone on your right or your left, practicing together. 1, 2, 3. Quick to listen, slow to speak. Now one time all together. 1, 2, 3. Quick to listen, slow to speak. Simple, yet so important. Some of us are the exact opposite. We're slow to listen, quick to speak, quick to anger. But today, just taking that one verse, we're going to try to understand it in the context of hurt and trauma and church hurt. So focusing on that and James's practical guide to Christian living, the question that I'm going to try to answer is, how do we become a people who can be hurting yet holy? It's hard to do both at the same time. Some communities, all we do is talk about hurting. All we do is make cliques and break off because all we know is division. And other people, all they focus is on, oh, how can we sound better? How can we do better? But a healthy church can be both at the same time. Why? Because we are constantly hurting, yet the Lord calls us to live holy. So how do we do this? How do we become a people who can be hurting yet holy? My first point, taking that first part, being quick to listen, is turn big into small. Turn big into small. Let's say this together. 1, 2, 3. Turn big into small. Again, borrowing that first part, let everyone be quick to listen. What we often don't realize, healing, processing, understanding our trauma or our church hurt or whatever it may be, healing often happens not in these large group settings. They don't happen in these huge gatherings like Sunday service, but often healing happens in the secret, hidden places of our lives. Healing doesn't happen in the big spaces. It actually most times happens in the small, still spaces where we can actually hear God and not be distracted. Don't get me wrong, Sunday service is important, but when we talk about healing, a lot of times it happens in secret places. It happens in hiding. Think about this. Jesus, before he did ministry for 3 years from age 30 to 33, he did 30 years of hiding. He just spent time, he sat with the Father. And if you pay attention to a lot of the important biblical figures, Joseph, David, a lot of them didn't just wake up one day and became king, but they spent years of hiding. of healing, of wrestling, of processing. The first way to become a people who can be hurting yet holy is to turn these big moments of maybe hype or maybe emotions, and our emotions are high and we're crying, and those are great, important moments, but to turn them into small moments where we can heal by the still and small voice of God. A lot of times God speaks softly. He's not yelling at you with a big billboard trying to get your attention. Sometimes that does happen, but oftentimes when we talk about healing, God heals in the still small voice when we sit with other people and with him. As Christians, the most important thing, and I want you guys to really pay attention here, the most important thing we could do for someone else is listen. It's not giving them a 4-point sermon on what the gospel is. It's not inviting them to church even. But the most important thing we get to do is to listen to other people. Oftentimes, we feel pressure to perform for God or say the right thing to someone when they're maybe experiencing pain, not because they need it, but because we can't handle it. We can't handle their pain. Like, dude, I asked you how your day was, not what you went through this week. I just wanted you to say good, not start talking. I didn't want you to actually tell me how your week was. Why? Because we're uncomfortable with those emotions. But to become people who are safe, people that are healing each other in community, we have to be quick to listen to others and give them the benefit of the doubt. What does that mean? It means always assuming the best of someone's intentions. It's always assuming, okay, even though they said something that was hurtful, I want to choose to believe that they said it not to hurt me. But they actually did it because they cared somehow, even if it was received wrongly. For Joyce and I, something that we talked about by ourselves, if you haven't noticed, sometimes when I speak, I have a little splash zone. I can spit sometimes. And especially in the beginning of our relationship, we'd have these really deep conversations, and without realizing, just like, and that's okay, but like, it hurt me the most when we did it with other friends. We'd be hanging out, having a good time with our friends, and out of nowhere, Joyce was like, and I'm like, okay, first of all, I'm sorry, but did you really have to embarrass me like that? And although it's something so small, it's such a window into relationship. A lot of times our assumptions are so like they're so assuming. We're like, of course Joyce is doing this to hurt my feelings, doing this to make me feel embarrassed. And again, if she's unhappy with what I'm sharing today, this will be the last time I share about our relationship. But that honestly, like the first year of our relationship, like that was rage bait for me. I would genuinely like, what the freak? Like that's so mean. My feelings are really hurt. And sometimes, yeah, her reactions, it can be like, oh, like literally, okay, maybe not that much. Maybe I'm glazing a little bit. And while I can just apologize and move on now, hopefully, I used to really be hurt because it felt like she was trying to embarrass me or make me feel bad. But after we brought it up, I had to learn, again, what am I talking about? Talking about giving her the benefit of the doubt. That's what I want, and I hope that each of us get to do in relationship, in community here. This person might have hurt me, but I choose to believe that they didn't mean to hurt me. I choose to assume the best intentions from them. The intent might have been good and it still hurt, but I choose to believe that they tried to do something good for me. Friends, becoming people who are hurting yet holy means being quick to listen and giving the benefit of the doubt when it's really, really hard, because it's always really hard. A lot of times the way we make meaning of things, the way we understand a situation is not always the reality of what's actually going on. And I want to give space for both. It makes sense how we feel, but also how we feel is not always what happens. Again, how do we become a people that is hurting yet holy? It's turning these big moments of hype, these moments of emotion into small moments of quiet listening and understanding. Friends, let's listen more than we speak. Let's learn to be people who can be good listeners, because that is how people understand the heart of God. The heart of God is not going to push his agenda on you. God is not this monster that's kicking down your front door and forcing you to believe in him. He's gentle. He's lonely. He's soft. He wants to listen, and the way we do that for others is by doing the same. And so next, James tells us, again, first thing, being quick to listen. Second thing, Slow to speak. Good job. You guys are already practicing that because you forgot it. Slow to speak. Next, James asks us to be slow to speak, which brings up my next point. How do we become hurting yet holy? Number 2, turn more into less. Let's say that together. 1, 2, 3. Turn more into less. Many times, if you've ever had a friend that shared something personal, something vulnerable, whether it's in small group or maybe a friend even outside of the church, when people share hurt, typically they're not looking for advice. I've had to learn that the hard way. I had to pay a lot of money and get a master's degree to learn this. When people share, they're not asking for advice most times. They're asking for someone to be present with them. They're asking for someone to listen, to not have a Bible verse to shoot back at them, but to just be like, yeah, that sucks. I'm so sorry. That phrase has saved me so many hours in my therapy sessions because that's the reason, because people, they're not looking for a response, but they're looking for presence. A lot of us, we're trying to find the right words to say. We're trying to find the perfect prayer potion to say. We end up trying to find the right words to say, and we actually end up saying too much when in reality we probably should have said very little. To be both hurting and yet still holy, it means turning more empty words into less but real genuine words to other people. For each of us, when others share their struggles, when they're sharing with us, or the question I want us to ask ourselves, are you listening to understand or are you listening to respond? A lot of times when we sit with people, we're like, all right, they said that, I'm going to respond to that because I just heard the sermon, I just heard this podcast, I just read this book. But what actually people want is people want us to just listen to understand. People need others that can show up and not show out. In my own life now, as I'm away from my dear friends and family here, like you guys in Philly, I will always continue to show up in the ways that I can. Obviously with big events, with like my trip home this time for my sister's graduation, but even in smaller ways by calling people, checking in on them, asking how they are, not to share my latest idea for a sermon or not to share my latest thing that I learned from the Bible, but simply just to be curious and listen. And even for myself, when I've talked to friends, mentors, therapists about some of my own church hurt and my own trauma, I don't remember what they say. I never remember what they say. I rarely remember what people have had to say to me, but rather I've always remembered how they showed up for me to listen. I remember how they made me feel. There's this quote by Maya Angelou, this artist: people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will remember how you made them feel. And this is not to say that feelings are the most important thing, but I think they're a strong indicator of how a person, of a heart of a person. Again, people will forget what you had to say to them. People forget sometimes what you even did for them, but people will remember how you made them feel. And so the question is, how do we make other people feel? Do we make people feel judged? Do we make people feel bad about themselves? Or do we try to help and make people feel understood and safe? And especially in the church space with AGC and obviously the larger church with BMC, my prayer is that we become and we see people less as projects and more as humans. Especially those of you that are serving, maybe in cell group, or maybe playing music, or get to be in the home team or whatever it might be. For those of you guys in ministry and in leadership, people are not distractions to your ministry. They're not things you got to jump over or hurdle to get to the ministry, but people are the ministry. The reason why you get to practice is for these people. The reason why I get to preach is for you guys. And so people are not a distraction, but people are our ministry. And so to be people who are hurting yet holy, James first again commands us to be quick to listen, next to be slow to speak, and the last one is to be slow to anger, which is the third point that I want to talk about. Lastly, turn fast into slow. Let's say that together. 1, 2, 3. Turn fast into slow. And again, I want us to really pay attention here. Notice how James doesn't say never be angry, but simply says be slow to anger. And I think what he's talking about that's really precise that I love is that there are different kinds of anger. There's human anger and godly anger. A lot of times, human anger comes from when we're triggered or when our ego is being hurt or when we feel offended. But godly hurt comes from when God's heart is hurting because of sin and injustice. In the same way, when we are hurt by others, when we are experiencing wounding in relationship, whether it's in the church or in your family or in your friendships, we cannot heal what we cannot admit. Same thing like a physical hurt. If you don't know your arm is broken, how could you ever possibly heal it? If you don't know your hurt comes from this particular relationship, how can you ever bring it to the Lord's feet? We have to first know why we're hurting. We can't heal what we cannot admit. Before healing from your hurt, you have to be able to be honest about why it hurt so much for you. We have to be able to put words to it, to understand it, to make it something that is in our control. Like earlier when I was talking about spiritual bypassing, this toxic positivity, churches, without realizing, we can easily become places where people are not met with empathy or understanding, but rather being dismissed and with, again, this kind of toxic positivity. When we see people hurting, our hearts have to be hurting with them. Jesus' heart joins with people that are hurting. That's what the Bible says, that God is close to the brokenhearted, close to the contrite in spirit. When people are hurting, our hearts have to be angry for them. In my own experiences with church hurt, and I'm still in therapy. I've needed to do a lot of therapy, and even now, even in my couples therapy with Joyce, that's not even about me. A lot of times, I'm the one that ends up walking out, crying, looking a mess when my boogie's all out, because a lot of these still hurts from years ago still come up pretty often for me. And the point of processing pain is, again, it's not about just simply forgetting. It's not about live, love, laugh, forgive, and forget, but it's about acknowledging your hurt without letting it take over your life. It's understanding, oh, I'm acting this way, I'm mad at them. It's not even about them, it's about something else that I've experienced. And to be a little bit vulnerable to share about my own experiences, a lot of it stemmed from my experiences while I was in high school, in the church, serving here, when I had a very close friend that we grew up together in the church that saw that over time we became friends into almost this like weird sense of competition, trying to one-up each other. And our friendship, again, quickly changed from big bro, little bro, to how we could show off and who could get the most followers and like the most influence in the church. And even now, after years, and this friend joining a different church, and I haven't talked to them in a while, I still notice that those particular hurts, they still get triggered in other relationships. As soon as I feel misunderstood, I'm quick to put my guard up. I'm quick to anger. I'm quick to speak. I'm slow to listen. And that's because there's still things that I'm trying to process and that I'm trying to take care of. And so while therapy is so awesome, and obviously as a therapist, you guys make me stay in business, and it's useful as a therapist, I believe in the church. I believe that the church is a unique place that we can heal in the context of community. That church can be and should be, and in the name of Jesus will be a place where people who are hurting can be healed and holy even in the middle of their pain. My prayer is that AGC, that the larger church of BMC, that you guys, that we would become a people who are safe for people who are hurting. Why? Because we're all hurting. Even if you want to admit it or not, we're all hurting.